Mr. Griffith, welcome. How are you?
Yes, hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear.
Claro.
Okay, great.
Yeah, very, very clear. How are you doing today?
Oh, fine, thanks. Couldn't be any better.
You know, we listen to the press conference, Gary. I'll be honest with you, right? And some issues that were raised about 3 years ago, and we are thinking, right? We want you to help us here. We are thinking that, does it have something to do with the article in the Newsday on March the 31st regarding Brent Thomas suing Barbados and you then running for St. Joseph? Is it a coincidence? What says you?
No, it is not coincidence. You see, the unfortunate thing that frustrates the life out of Keith Rowley is that I know almost every single decision and comment that is made in cabinet or through him, and he passes it on to others. So Keith Rowley, whilst abroad, sent a message out immediately to Fitzgerald Hines and Amy Brown to have this press conference. This press conference took place because Keith Rowley, on those same two matters, with my announcement of being the candidate and obviously the next member of parliament for St. Joseph, bringing PNM Stalin from 22 to 21, one more to go. And then also with the Brent Thomas matter, with me emphasizing and explaining to the country that in that Brent Thomas matter, it is impossible for any police officer to leave the territorial waters of Trinidad and Tobago to be involved in any operation. And the reason I can say that is that I was the Commissioner of Police and I was a Minister of National Security. So the government cannot lie to the country to state that no government official gave approval. The police cannot leave Trinidad and Tobago unless there's the authorization from a very senior government official in the National Security Council, on most occasions the Minister of National Security. That is what has them very scared now, especially as Brent Thomas is pursuing this matter in Barbados. Whereas maybe here in Trinidad and Tobago, the police will be a little reluctant because they know that when the mark busts on this in Trinidad parlance, what is going to happen is that it is going to be discovered that a government official could very well now be investigated, if not arrested, for aiding and abetting in an abduction, and that is what has bothered them. So it was so obvious to all listeners. Everyone in Trinidad and Tobago, they are shocked, they are disappointed, they are disgusted that a Minister of National Security and a Minister of Foreign Affairs will do a press conference, not to speak about matters that could assist in reducing crime or improving our relations diplomatically, economically, or in any form of with any of our international allies, but you do a media conference to bad talk Gary Griffith. You cannot be more pathetic. You cannot be more desperate than that. And what was sad is that almost everything they said was based on lies. And so you, as Minister of Foreign Affairs, bring up something 3 years ago that happened to now claim that the U.S. met with you on that. Well, it's the same U.S. government met with me as a Commissioner of Police and told me they are very concerned and also disgusted by the actions of this present PNM government in their close relations with certain countries that are not possible allies of the U.S., but are close to being virtual communist countries. So he wants to speak about private meetings. I would start to reveal private meetings.
So Gary, what about Amy Brown's comment regarding SWORD funding that was shut down from the U.S.? What do you say about that one?
Right, and again, listen, Amy Brown was thrown out of the PNM law house like a dog because of his affiliation to Manning. His desperation is fast becoming one where he's trying to be an opportunist in the hope that he could impress Keith Rowley so that he could go into the law house. To start with, no unit in the law enforcement agencies can get U.S. funding after they've been established or after just a few months. That is not how it works. Even the special branch, it took years before they started to get funding. Same with MOPS. So the stupidity of Amy Brown, because the little midget doesn't even understand national security policy, but he jumps in there to try to impress Keith Rowley. So that is the first thing. And SWORD has never received funding. Two, if it is that he claims that This is based on the US strictly stating that it's because of the incident involving the two persons who died whilst in police custody. There have been over 100 police killings in the last 3 years. And these involve units such as the IATF, MOPS, the GB, the Northern Division. Is he trying to say that the US decided to just handpick sort because of these two persons being killed? But over the 100 of other police killings, everybody remember the Mova shooting when the police officers riddled the car and turned it into a strainer. People are aware of the recent matter with the prison service when a prisoner was killed. Is it the incident with Coast Guard when persons were killed whilst in the hands of Coast Guard? So the stupidity of trying to say that one isolated incident is going to cause the US to blacklist sort. That was not the case. They were upset of any single unit that I established. That is why they tried to shut it down, dismantle it. And the audacity of Fitzgerald Hines. The man is the most incompetent politician in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. The most diehard PNM could vouch for that. And this man wants to speak about people who are not succeeding. Let's compare. As a Minister of National Security, it was the highest reduction in serious crime in 31 years. I established the Rapid Response Unit, the National Operations Center, the Community Comfort Patrol, the National Security Special Operation Group, the National Security Training Academy, and it totally revamped law enforcement in Trinidad and Tobago. This man, as a Minister of National Security, has not put one plan, not one policy. He's so ignorant, he didn't even know his role and function. If you recall when he said, my role is not to secure and to make people feel safer. And then you question me as a Commissioner of Police. Before me, crime was at an all-time high. Whilst I was Commissioner of Police, it was 89% national support for myself, wanted me to remain or had no concern. 89%, 2 times more than his failed Prime Minister in national support. Public trust and confidence in the police moved from 14% when I took over to 59% when I left. A year later, it went back down to 8%. It was the highest reduction in violent crime in 17 years. My last full year, the homicide rate was 343 per annum. A year or so later, it went up to over 600 after I left. The Police Service Commission, my annual assessments by the Police Service Commission everything was excellent or very good, 72 out of 75, constantly. I was commended constantly by the same PNM government. And the same Fitzgerald Hines said that we wish that the police service could work at 25% capacity to how Gary Griffith is working. So it shows that he lied on himself. And then ministers in the same PNM government said in a cabinet meeting in March 2021 that Rowley said he wished he could get 10 Gary Griffiths to fix this country. So it shows the stupidity of this man to try to be so desperate in an attempt to try to discredit me. And instead of trying to show what plans, what policies are you bringing to the table to reduce crime, all you can speak about is the bad to Gary Griffith.
So Mr. Griffith, why it is that they are so interested in these 2 killings, right? These 2 killings of alleged criminals, and not the 100 or so police killings after you left office?
Well, it's not that interesting. This is my point. It shows their stupidity because, as I said, there have been over 100 odd police killings with McDonald Jacob as commissioner, with Earl Christopher as commissioner. Are you going to say that they're to blame and they're responsible? And even if it is, and mind you, let me remind the country and everyone listening, in these 2 persons who were killed, up to now, not one person has been charged in the police service for being responsible for those persons being. You claim to be a lawyer, and you're so ignorant that you're automatically trying to cast blame on the police service on a matter that is still being investigated. So what this was a desperate attempt to try to smear me. And as I said, over 100 other police killings, and I'm not saying that it means that the units that were involved in it did anything wrong, but those matters need to be investigated and persons can be culpable. But there are 7,000 police officers, and just say if it is that an officer did abuse his authority, you're trying to blame Gary Griffith for that. I mean, it was so pathetic in how he tried in his desperate attempt to discredit me. The whole country is so disappointed to see that this is what the PNM has reached to.
Now, what about the Prime Minister comment regarding saying that the judge was wrong with regards to the firearm policy? What about those comments?
Well, okay, so let me clarify to all that's listening right now. This country is slowly becoming what I've referred to being democratic, dictatorial country. It's democratic dictatorship. In this situation with Keith Rowley, when it is he had an issue with the Integrity Commission, fire the person on top. Industrial Court, remove the person on top. Director of the SSA, remove the person on top. Commissioner of Police, remove the person on top. That is how he operates. That is his style. He cannot be questioned, and nobody could say anything other than what he wants. In the situation with the judge, Keith Rowley cannot be that stupid. You cannot, to the point now that you are now criticizing judges. I mean, borderline now for contempt of court, because it shows his ignorance in even understanding the law. What happened in this situation is that there have been 25,000 people applying for firearms, and because of the laziness or inability of police commissioners before me to do their job, and because I actually, they criticized me for being too efficient. So because I did my job, this same individual, he got his provisional permit. It takes a signature by Earl Christopher to give him his FUL. You get that 3 months after the provisional. 3 years pass and it stays on your desk, and you tell a judge you're too busy, but you're fast out a place to be able to speak to tell a judge you're busy. Busy doing what, Earl Christopher? I work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, all over the country, transforming the Trinidad and Tobago police service that Hines could never dream of doing because he's incompetent. And that is the situation here with Rowley. So because the judge said that the commissioner of police had a right to either approve it or reject it, and she is correct, and the judge is correct. The judge never said that the person had a right to get the firearm, but it shows how ignorant Rowley is in understanding the law. And then he had the audacity to speak about the judge needs to understand that there's a government policy. Keith Rowley has to be the dumbest prime minister this country ever had. There is no such as government policy as it pertains to issue of firearms in Trinidad and Tobago. There is something called a law, which he fails to understand and recognize. And the law is clear. It gives the process for how persons can get firearms, which is why, if you notice, all the lies from Hines and others about this massive, well-oiled criminal industry, all is so massive. And 3 years later, out of 10,000 police officers, out of 6,000 people getting firearms, out of dozens of firearm dealers, not one person has been charged. And in the 6,000 that I issued, not one was lost, not one was stolen, not one was used for a crime, and not one person even questioned as it pertains to any form of corruption in the distribution of those firearms. It shows that this government are full of liars, they are deceitful, they mislead the country, but what they do is that they hate to have law-abiding citizens defend themselves, and they have not done a thing to assist in preventing criminal elements from having illegal firearms, which has contributed to almost 100% of murders by firearms in the last few years.
Now, today, right, Gary, Hines stated, right, I'm quoting now, PM Rowley and Hines expressed surprise that now fired SRP Brown was in possession of 4 assault military type weapons, right? And here's my question. After you left, why weren't these weapons taken away if that was considered to be illegal?
Well, you see, again, what they try to do is just like the bacchanal and the lies about firearms. All of this with SRP, Pastor Brown, and all of that. Who has been questioned? Who has been arrested? What charge is it? What is the crime that has been committed? This is what the PNM, they are good at. Spit lies, cause bacchanal, and of course, people will say all of this gives a reason and a justification for people to be removed. And when it again shows the ignorance and the stupidity of Rowley and Hines. When they both said that cabinet, that SRP, that SSA personnel were getting the use of firearms before it was approved by cabinet. How could you be so stupid? Cabinet are politicians. It comprises politicians. Politicians cannot give you approval to issue firearms. That has been done through the Commissioner of Police, through the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, and that has been done for years. I can tell you because I was in the Defense Force. If somebody has an FUL, the person can get a firearm through a FUEC, or if the persons are SRPs assigned to the SSA. But it shows their desperation and the hope that they could find something to try to link to me. This whole thing, the government has spent the last few years, if you look at the local government election, all they did in every single day on the platform was to attack Gary Griffith, because that is their concern. Their concern is, look, and let me make it as simple as possible. They know that the UNC has probably 150, 170, 88,000 votes. They know that there's a bridge constituency of floating voters in this country who all want the PNM to be removed. But they would like to have a bridge constituency be there to work with any other major party. And by me coming now into this whole situation with the possibility that there could be some type of a strategic alliance, they know it is going to be an annihilation for them as what happened in 1986 with the NAR and 2010 with the People's Partnership. So this is where a prime minister who's supposed to be on vacation in Ireland is running like a little schoolboy to tell his ministers, you must go out there and have a press conference, not to talk about reducing crime, not to talk about bilateral agreements between other countries or to improve diplomatic relations or technology. But this little wimp in Amory Brown has the audacity to come now, because you take instructions from your prime minister, go and bad talk Gary Griffith for an hour plus. The country is so fed up. They looked and listened to these two jokers, and not one thing of substance they said or did to make the country feel safer, make the country feel that this government cares. And that is what we are encountering at this time, which is why this has proven to be the most incompetent government in the history of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, no, Gary, they were talking about Section 6 of the Firearms Act, which outlined that any person wanting to hold arms and ammunition in generality, I'm quoting here from him now, must be licensed to do so. But Section 7 of the said Firearm Act say that there are certain categories of persons who are exempt from the need for a license in Section 61. And then they list the persons, but they also included a SRP. So I didn't understand that.
Well, that is the point, because they're stupid. They listen, what Keith Rowley and Hines play is keep digging up, see if they could find something to play a game of, we catch him. So when they realize that SSA is not like the Defense Force, where every single member of the Defense Force has the authorization to carry a firearm, or every member of the police service has the authorization to be issued a firearm without having a FUL. They figured, we catch him. But they are so stupid, they didn't realize that if the person is an SRP, he has authorization to carry a firearm. It is just that he's been seconded to the SSA. So or if the person has a FUEC, a Firearm Users Employee Certificate on behalf of someone who has an FUL. As a commissioner of police, I could give a firearm to a principal in a kindergarten, and the principal could give it to their children. I'm not saying that I will do that, but I'm just trying to show the point. The commissioner has that authority, because supermarkets, that is done. So somebody who owns a large supermarket, he will have an FUL, and the persons who work for him can have weapons issued using an FUEC under his FUL. My God, how could a prime minister who's the chair of the National Security Council be so stupid not to understand the basic laws of Trinidad and Tobago? And that is where it goes back to the point when they kept saying that there's a government policy for issue of firearms. What is the government policy? Listen, I want Keith Rowley and Hines to show the government policy for firearms. And if they could show up government policy for firearms, I will resign and have nothing to say in politics in the rest of my life, because they're lying. There's no such government policy. The only policy is the law. And I adhere to the law. You had commissioners before and after me who probably have never held a firearm in decades, who never went on a range. So they may be afraid of firearms and not understand how to use it and the importance of it for law-abiding citizens. So I looked at the law, and I made sure that persons, you did your due diligence, you did the background check, you checked the person's finances, you made sure they do the psychometric the testing, you made sure that you checked that the spouses approved it, you check and see where, and we did everything, which is why, as I said, in the 6,000 I issued, half of which would have been for law enforcement officials, not one was lost, stolen, or used for a crime. It didn't happen before me, because certain persons were getting firearms based on who they were. And the audacity of Keith Rowley to keep speaking about firearms, I keep mentioning it, and the media is not asking it. If you had a problem with Gary Griffith giving out so many firearms, why is it that you are harassing Gary Griffith to get a firearm dealership for somebody you know in Tobago to go and sell more firearms? The man then tried to mislead the country and spoke about 64,000 firearms enter the country. If by fact, as they confirmed, I issued 2,000 firearms a year, you're telling me a firearm dealers will bring in 64,000. That would have meant that it will take 32 years before we sell those firearms. By the time that comes about, it's like muskets. Nobody wants those firearms again. But it is the type of lies that you continue to get from this government. Their plan, just like Emailgate, let's say the same lie over and over, but the only people who are going to believe that are the 100,000 PNM till they're dead that Keith Rowley could shoot somebody in broad daylight, and they will still vote for him. And that is their right, that is their right. But the floating voters, the people who are independent thinkers, the people in that bridge constituency, they have seen a corrupt, evil, vindictive, deceitful, incompetent government. And those are their good points. And that is why they are shifting away. And this government is going to be removed from office as soon as the election is called.
So Gary, why are they pushing the narrative that the SSA did not have the authority to have armed officers until November?
Sorry, I didn't hear you there. Sorry, the call is dropping.
Yeah, okay. Why are they pushing the narrative that this is according to the Prime Minister, that the SSA did not have the authority to have armed officers until November of last year? Yeah, that's when...
Because as I said, the man is not bright. SSA have been for years, over 15 years, SSA had... So you're telling me, he's trying to tell me that the SSA, which is similar to you guys known as the CIA, that a CIA will not have firearms, person won't have firearms in the CIA. The SSA, these officers have to go in volatile situations, to go on intelligence gathering to some of the hottest hotspot areas, all 2-3 o'clock in the morning, be in their vehicles where they could be targeted, where they could be ambushed. And you're telling me that it is only because the cabinet approved it 2 weeks ago that all before SSA could have never carried firearms? You can't be more stupid than that.
Now, another thing, right, Gary? This is something that people, certain people in Trinidad, I'll put it this way, certain people in Trinidad question, right? Why lay the audit report in Parliament and not in public, right? Are they afraid of being sued on only one parliamentary
so let me clarify.
protection? Yeah.
Let me clarify. When I listened to Fitzy Hines today, the Minister Rip Van Winkle, he gets up to take a rest. Minister Rip Van Winkle Hines had the audacity, right, to be able to state that, well, no, the government worked hand in hand with the police on an investigation. Are you that mad or that stupid? You are a politician. You are a government. You have no say in an investigation that is ongoing by the police. How dare you try to turn this into some sort of a dictatorial, if not communist country, that you feel you could interfere and be part of an investigation that was ongoing by the police? So that was his justification. That's the first thing. Most of the countries in the world, he will be removed from office because that is blatantly showing that I am totally abusing my authority. And I am handpicking people, pay them big money, and let them be part of a police investigation, probably in the hope that they could target political opponents, which, by the way, is what they did. They gave me $40 million, put it in the police account, then directed me to hire people, make them SRPs, the same SRPs that they're concerned about that mustn't carry firearms, to then target political opponents. That is the type of dictatorship in this country. So going back to this situation with Hines, you handpick people. You didn't do a tender. So you pick people that you're probably close to, that you know, pay them big money, then tell them, you go down there in the police service and you do an investigation. You cannot do that nowhere in the world. No democratic country in the world, a politician could do that. But these crazy people thought they could. And then when they did that, these 4 individuals were so either incompetent or influenced that you ever heard an audit being done and the person in charge of the company wasn't spoken to about the audit? How can an audit in a bank and the CEO or company or the general manager you didn't speak to? That shows either the persons who were selected were either incompetent or they had an agenda. So from that alone, it is known as natural justice. That matter, it can't be null and void. But what made it worse is when Keith Rowley said he is going to take it to Parliament to read it out. That is when I got involved and I took them to court, because that is what Keith Rowley did. He got this thing for 6 months and he sat on it and then took it to Parliament. Reason being why he wants to go to Parliament with the audit report. Parliament is the one place that you can lie and destroy people's character and not be sued. So when you hear in the PNM till they're dead, what Gary have to hide? Not Gary has to hide. All he had to do before this matter went to court is in a man, go out in public. He knew he could not go in public and read it out because I would have sued him for every single thing. The polish he puts on his bald head, he wouldn't have been able to buy polish again because he would have been sued for every single cent he had. So he knew he couldn't go on a platform and read it out. He wanted to go to Parliament, and that is why I took him to court, because he was being a coward. He wanted to prepare a document, not have me interviewed, not let me show the facts, lie about what is in the report, and then after read it out in Parliament to smear my character, and then I can't sue him. That turned out to be what is the fact.
Now, Mr. Griffith, could it be considered to be disrespectful to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago that will...
I'm getting serious problems hearing you.
Okay, all right. The all on us on the live statistic. Well, let me see. You hearing me now? Is that better?
Hold 1 minute. 1 minute.
Okay.
So you're out.
Let me. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. You hearing me better now? Hello?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Now,
yes.
Could we say that it's disrespectful to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago that they will focus on you, who is a political opponent, rather than making citizens safer and more secure?
No, definitely. I think it's so unfortunate that all that this government they have done is spend all of their time trying to smear and target Gary Griffith. There's no Fitzgerald Hines, every time he speaks, the same thing with Keith Rowley. It is to bad to Gary Griffith. The PNM knows nothing else. All they do is to attack, it's to discredit, it's to criticize, it's to lie, it's to smear. That is all they do. How could you be in a government and all your job, you feel that your job is just to lie about people and attack political opponents? There's nothing that they say that, you could bring value to people to say, okay, this makes sense. So that's my point. So because of me now stating that I am the candidate for St. Joseph, PNM, they're fully aware how it usually runs in Trinidad and Tobago. It's like a Florida thing. You win St. Joseph, you win the election. And that is what is hurting them. That is what is bothering them. Because so what their intention now is to do every single thing in their power to try to discredit me, to criticize me, to attack me. And that is it. So the country is not buying it. They're not buying it. What they wanted, to hear a minister. I mean, crime is at an all-time high. Thanks to this man, the two highest periods of murder in the history is under Fitzgerald Hines. And instead of you doing a media conference to explain to the country, this is what we intend to do to make you feel safer, you go back to something 3 years ago, and the audacity of them trying to smear my character. There was the last ambassador. The last ambassador in for the US, he actually went and stated that Trinidad and Tobago is blessed to have somebody like me as the commissioner of police. I will play it. And Fitzgerald Hines also said that if the police service could work at 40% to my speed, the police service will be transformed. So it shows what hypocrites they are and trying to bring in the US into your bacchanal. It is very unfortunate.
Gary, you want to do the video? Because I seen you in the back.
Yes. You can put me on, yeah, sure.
Yeah, all right. Let me bring you a new video. Hold on. Let me do this. Hold on. Let's get rid of this. And let's bring you in here. Here we go. All right.
Much better.
Here we go. Yeah. This is much better. There we go. So, yeah. So, I think you may need to take off your phone.
Yeah.
And a little feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Right. Good, great now, great. So, when I listened to the press conference today, I was surprised to know that the Minister of Foreign Affairs somehow was making a connection between the United States and SORT, not S-A-U-T-T, but I think S-O-R-T. It's S-O-R-T.
Correct, S-O-R-T. The S-A-U-T-T was illegal. That was drafted without the authorization for members of the defense force to be involved in powers of arrest and so forth. So that was an illegal unit that was formed. And Avery Brown was part of that.
And so they were trying to make a connection now between disbanding SORT and the American not making contribution because of what was happening in SORT. Right?
Yeah, and that is the point. So the Special Operation Response Team, the whole country knew that was the first time there was a unit that put fear in the criminals. The gang members pegged back.
because the gang is what is happening now. The gangs have taken over the country. They are shooting and killing in broad daylight because there's no fear. There was fear in SWOT. And that same SWOT, which was the front line, you will think that if you're the front line, it's similar to the SWAT in the United States. The frontline unit will be involved in many instances as it pertains to exchange of gunfire and possible police killings. So in this situation with SWOT, all the 2 years that SWOT have been involved in all the different things in arresting criminals, pegging back gang members, being involved in firefights, being involved in major seizure of weapons, drugs. One incident, and the US will say, well, this court, let me tell you, though, there's an individual who was very close to the minister, and he used to speak to the US Embassy on a regular basis, and he was giving them false information. And it is unfortunate when politicians get involved with diplomacy and start to mislead your allies. Because think about it, Trinidad and Tobago. Why is it that SWOT, that was the frontline unit? You're telling me that the United States, whenever there's a police killing, you will shut down all the different units. Every time there's a police killing, you'll shut down every unit in the United States. So that makes no sense. So one incident with 2 persons being killed at the hands of the police, and we don't know which police because they were in a police station at the time. We do not even know if it is that the police did anything wrong because nobody has been charged. And that is what Amy Brown will come up with 3 years later. But as I said, there have been over 100 different shootings with police officers, with police killings. How come all of these other units have never been shut down? How come these units have never been removed? How come the US has never stopped funding with these units? What it is, Gary Griffith formed SWOT. So we have to shut down SWOT, the Rapid Response Unit, the Emergency Response Patrol, the National Operations Center, the Operational Command Center, the Commissioner's Command Center, GPS tracking on vehicles, the Community Comfort Patrol, the National Security Special Operation Group, body cameras, dashboard cameras on the vehicles, tasers, pepper spray. Every single thing that I did, they had to shut down or dismantle because that is the type of petty government they are. And it's because of that the country felt safer just 3 years ago. And now the country has never been so fearful from crime.
You know, it's interesting, right? I read the article in the Newsday regarding Brent Thomas and what happened there with that kidnapping. In Trinidad and Tobago, what's the status of that?
Well, and again, it shows that the police, because they wanted a commissioner who is fearful and will toe the line. Had I been the commissioner of police, the officers who would have gone to Barbados and arrested Brent Thomas, do you know the court? The judge said he is shocked that the officers who are involved in this abduction are still working. That's what it is. He can't believe that they're still on duty. And instead of the commissioner of police actually making a statement based on what the judge, the finding of the court said, these police officers left Trinidad to go to Barbados to kidnap a Trinidad and Tobago citizen. Not a word from the commissioner of police. And the judge said he cannot understand how these officers are still on active duty. And instead of the commissioner stating, because I would have done it, I would have said that this minister gave authorization and instructions to send these officers to Barbados. But you know what? You don't want to do it because you want to toe the line, because you want to keep your work. That is what has affected Trinidad and Tobago for years. Persons who want to be yes people, they forget about their oath in office. So Earl Christopher, shame on you. You have a judge sitting, how are these officers still on duty? And instead of you actually even explaining how could these officers have left Trinidad and Tobago to go to Barbados? Because again, as I said, I was the security minister, I was a commissioner of police. If the police football team or the defense force hockey team has to go to New York Big Apple hockey tournament or to a football game in Barbados, you must get the approval from the Minister of National Security. So don't fool the country. They are staying silent every time I say this, because what I'm saying is that a minister gave instructions for the kidnapping of a Trinidad and Tobago citizen, and the Commissioner of Police has refused to say a word.
But further than that, Gary, isn't the Prime Minister in charge of the National Security Council?
He is, but the Minister of National Security is the person who would usually give approval for any arms of the protective services to travel abroad. The Minister of National Security. So if Fitzgerald Hines said it's not him, then it's somebody else in the National Security Council that would have given that approval.
But I'm thinking, shouldn't the Prime Minister call for an investigation into that?
He's not going to, because one of his ministers could be arrested. That is the point. He will not do it. And it shows what a coward he is. He shows how unethical he is, because we have a situation where a judge said that these police officers should not be on duty. They remain on duty because Ola Christopher doesn't have the strength to suspend them. Because if she suspends them, they might sink the state. This is the person. Because for the officers to leave, there must be signed. There must be the approval from as being a member of law enforcement. So Ola, and nobody in our media, they're also afraid. Nobody in the media is telling Ola Christopher, these officers could not have left Trinidad and Tobago's territorial waters because the only authorization you have as a commissioner is within the jurisdiction of Trinidad and Tobago. Who gave them instructions to go to Barbados? If they ask Ola Christopher that, she will now have to answer. And then she will be but then nobody's asking her. Everybody's staying quiet because they are afraid of this vindictive government.
So I want to get back to Spy Pastor Brown, right? They stated today that he was appointed in February 2021 as an SRP under you, right? Yeah. And when you left, if this guy was doing illegal activities, how come the following commissioner of police didn't get rid of him?
Well, he was never involved in any illegal activities. That is how Hines and company operate. Give the impression that somebody is breaking the law or doing something wrong. Let's go back to the firearms. Massive, well-oiled criminal industry. Yeah, we had the audit, and if you saw the things written in the audit, it made for disturbing reading. But 3 years, going on 4 years later, not one person charged, not one person convicted, not one person arrested. And the only person held is an innocent civilian in Trinidad and Tobago who were kidnapped in Barbados because you were desperate to find something. And that shows the whole thing here. It is just like what's happening with SSA. There's a desperate witch hunt in the hope that they could fool the country to believe massive bacchanal was going on in the SSA. So the biggest concern is that Roger Best was involved in hiring people who may be closely affiliated to worship God. So what, you prefer that for him to hire people who are criminal elements? Because that's what the government do. So whereas Roger Best was appointing and hiring people who may have divine intervention and related to God, this government has been involved on a continuous manner in providing massive state contracts to criminal elements who use the profit to purchase more illegal weapons, hire more gang members, buy rogue police officers, and put hits on other gang members to get their contracts. Notice the contrast with Roger Best, who he hires, to how the PNM government hires.
Gary, there has been some discussion regarding there was some spy unit within the SSA. What? There was our interception unit within the SSA. Can you elaborate?
No. The SSA has to have that interception unit. That is their job. Their role and function is to have that interception. What was happening is that the government, they were using and manipulating the interception for their own political agenda. I saw the document where it was written by an acting commissioner of police to a deputy director of the SSA stating to intercept the phones of Gary Griffith. And they just have to use the word intelligence. And this was done not because there was anything, the government directed, look, let's see if we could find something so that we could target Gary Griffith. That is dangerous, which shows why this prime minister, notice the places he loves to visit. It is the same type of style, the same style of that type of dictatorial approach where you feel you could abuse the national security resources, be involved in abusing the intercept equipment. That is a very dangerous precedent. So watch and see that this whole SSA thing, it seems to be one where they wanted to have full control to manipulate the intelligence units so that they can be able to intercept the phones of political opponents. That is the danger of this PNM government.
But here is Tommy. I don't know if Tommy have anything to say. But here is the thing, right? Who have been arrested, who have been in the SSA or who was in the SSA so far?
Absolutely no one. But that's how the PNM operates. It's just like the firearms. Remember, Stanley Jokey John said, massive, well-oiled criminal enterprise. And Fitzsief Rip Van Winkle Hines today enforced it. And not one person after 4 years has even been questioned. So as I said, 6,000 persons got firearms, 7,000 police officers, over 20 odd persons who are firearm dealers, and not one person they can arrest, not one. So this is your massive well-oiled criminal industry. So all the PNM faithful, I challenge any of you all, debate me on this. How something could be such a massive well-oiled criminal enterprise and not one person arrested as yet? Because they are liars. That's what they do. And if it is that someone could actually have done it, it does not mean as a massive, well-oiled criminal enterprise, because we've been hearing for decades about corruption in the police, about firearms. Gary Griffith, put systems to prevent it, which is why Keith Rowley, again, he's so, in local parlance, dotish. The man he stated that I took away the authority of senior superintendents who are division commanders from having the authority to approve firearms. The man is so clueless. No senior police officer has that authority. The authority is always with the commissioner of police. And we still gave them the authority to do the due diligence, the background check, and so forth. And then you bring it to the firearm compliance unit, which was formed to make sure that there'll be nobody slipping through the cracks to get a firearm that they weren't supposed to get. Which is why we had 100% record of not one incident taking place by those people who issued firearms during my 3-year period. So, for example, if a lady will call and say that her husband beat her, immediately through our technology, we'll be able to know that this person has a firearm. We'll seize it from them immediately. All of those things stopped because the firearm we had a chip. So it will have the update of every single thing the individual did. If he's held for drinking and driving, it will immediately be fed to the firearm compliance unit. All of that stopped. So we've gone back to the old-time days of policing, thanks to Keith Rowley and Fitzgerald Hines.
Why? This is a question that the whole of Trinidad I want to ask, right? Why after 3 years, they still keep bringing up these two persons who fell off a chair and died? Why after all these years, nobody was arrested? No, I mean, I don't know if it's an ongoing investigation, but why after all these years, they still keep bringing it up that?
Well, this came up because, as I said, Keith Rowley is in Ireland. Instead of watching dolphins swim and enjoy yourself, have the sunlight shine on your bald head, you decide to go to tell Fitzgerald Hines and Avery Brown, do a press conference now to attack Gary Griffith. And they went in there clueless. So they brought up something that was 3 years old, and 3 years later, no one has been arrested. So you are telling me the US will shut down a unit, and you all will shut down a unit, and the person, no one has been arrested as yet? Really? Whereas we would have seen the incident in the Mova shooting, where police officers, 3 persons died where they said that they were unarmed. We saw several other instances with police killings, and those units have not been shut down. It shows the vindictiveness, the pettiness, the small-mindedness, the tunnel vision of this government. So, as I said, this happened 3 years ago. And 3 years ago, and what I said, well, with these persons, there were over 60 reports or charges we had with them involved in sexual harassment, grievous body harm of women. And one thing we know is that they will not be able to do it again. Hines had a problem with that, He had a problem, but I was not lying. Unless Hines watches what he tunes in on this TV series, The Walking Dead. I doubt these two fellas could do it again because they're dead. So what I was saying was not a lie. But his sympathy and his concern of these two men, which is good, which is important. Where's your sympathy for Andrea Barrett? Where's your sympathy for her family? Where's your sympathy for the 60 other women and their family who have been affected because of the actions of what these two persons did be in charge? Not a word about that, which goes back to my point. This government spends all of their time looking after the rights of criminals over that of law-abiding citizens. So that is why when I was trying to get firearms for law-abiding citizens to defend themselves because of the state's inability to protect them, they're upset. Notice they have not lifted a finger to put an end to illegal firearms. Not one policy, not one plan, not one unit, not one piece of technology. I actually brought in mobile scanners to pinpoint illegal firearms. They shut it down. I drafted the border protection unit for them 4 years ago. They ignored it. It shows that this government has, if not sympathetic, there's some involvement in them in the massive criminal industry in this country. And maybe I was stepping on too many toes, and that's why they need to remove me.
Gary, something happened today, right? A gentleman on a radio station said that the police department issue handbags, earrings, and watches to females. Can you help me with that?
Really, that one kind of baffled me. I don't know about that. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure about that at all. I've never heard about that before. That one is news to me.
No, and you was on this program. You was on this program. You went on this program, and
that one, no. I've never heard about that as police issue. So no.
Police watching. Police,
Pardon?
police errors, police watches,
Hold on,
and police now.
Hold on, Gary. Hold on a minute. I want to play this video because we want to listen to this. Listen to this.
Even where it comes to the wearing of earrings, there are police service issued earrings, police service issued handbags. I know someone didn't know that. Police service issued watches.
Well, he probably knows more than me because that's the first time I've ever heard that in my life. So he probably works in the procurement department or the finance department or the stores. Because I don't know what the earrings look like. It has TTPS on it. What is the watch? Is a kind of Mickey Mouse watch with two guns sticking out? I mean, really? I know sometimes in these stations they need to watch the people who they interview. They really need to.
No, I have to say,
He's actually a presenter.
He's actually a presenter.
That sums up the station.
And when I hear that, or somebody just said, well, Wall Street, Gary come in here, could ask Gary, and anybody will know. You would know, right? And
I've never heard about that. You don't know the earrings are TTPS. It has TTPS on it, or it have a picture of Gary Griffith flexing his muscle. I don't know. That's when he could answer that.
But Gary, why would people come to the media and give this type of misleading information? Why is it?
Well, listen, sometimes there's always a little bit of truth to every lie. So, like, for example, somebody may have a bag issued because they're working on an undercover operation or something. But you don't issue watches. You don't issue jewelry. You don't issue bags. So, I mean, look, whatever, yes?
Yeah, whatever. But let me stay on focus because I think today, when I listened to the interview today, I was like, it seemed like if, even though he was reading from a script, that when he talked about Section 6, Section 7, and Section 61, he contradicted himself in one of the sections. And I'm like, you coming to make somebody look bad, right? At least leave out this section where it contradicts what you
exactly. So that is why, sorry, but that is why when Rowley said, and they could not have acquired firearms until it was amended in cabinet 2 weeks ago. One, cabinet has no approval to make such amendment, and two, by him stating that, he actually stated that there's no SSA person who could have carried a firearm, and that's what I said. They are liars because I showed it, because he came and used the same quotes of what was used prior to for persons to have firearms. So it shows that you're lying, but then they're actually giving quotes to show that you're lying.
I somehow didn't get that. But Gary, stay with us for a few more minutes. We're gonna go for a quick break and we'll be right back. Okay? Thank you so much. So folks, it's In the Village with Uncle Tommy, Professor Wall Street, and the NTA political leader Gary Griffith and you. We'll be right back after this short break. Don't go nowhere.
You're listening to WZYE 95.9 FM. You are listening to WZYE 95.9 FM, the most influential name in Caribbean radio in the tri-state area. Broadcasting from East Orange, New Jersey, the most influential name in Caribbean radio. WZYE 95.9 FM.
We are back with you. It's In the Village with Uncle Tommy, Professor Wall Street, NTA political leader Gary Griffith, and you on WZYE 95.9 FM. Of course, folks, we are streaming live on WZYE 95.9 FM on Facebook, WZYE TV on YouTube, and WZYE 95.9 FM on Twitter, better known as X. And we have with us no stranger to the village, the NTA political leader, Gary Griffith.
And if I could, as it pertains to SSA, let me show you how vindictive, how draconian this government is. Information just came to me to confirm. Members of the response team who were employed to safeguard the employees of SSA in the cases of an emergency were just sent home. They were persons who will respond to security emergencies such as threats against employees. Also, personnel from the church who are members of the defense force who have absolutely nothing to do with the agency was just sent on 3 months leave, no reason given. Instructions from the Chief of Defense Staff. This, Trinidad and Tobago, shows the type of dictatorial country we are right now.
You know, have we most of our institutions in Trinidad and Tobago, have we actually corrupted most of those institutions? Here why I ask that. When we look at the SSA, right, the SSA now have a head that was actually appointed by the Prime Minister, right? So that person have to answer to the Prime Minister at the end of the day, I would think, right? If I appoint you, you know, you have to answer to me. Why have we gone down that road? Or why have they gone down that road as to basically
Very good question. Very good question. I'll tell you why. It is the correct thing to do. The unfortunate thing is that we are a banana republic when it comes to national security. So, for example, the mayor of New York City, he is the person that will hire or fire the police commissioner, right? But the reason being is that if things go wrong and crime is high or low, he gets the credit or the blame. So it gives him the authority to select the commissioner of police. The US president would be person or that hierarchy involved in the selection of the head of Homeland Security, the head of the CIA, because the buck stops with them. But that is a developed country. In this banana republic attitude we have, a prime minister will say, I want to get a commissioner who will listen to me to lock up the UNC people. I want to get a director of the SSA who will intercept the phones. So they use the position instead of so whereas the state has given them the authority to handpick these people for the benefit of national security, they use it instead to find persons who they may say, aha, this person is going to help me. So the audacity of them when they speak about Rishmi Ramnarayan, somebody who worked for less than 12 hours, you have removed a commissioner of police that 89% of the country was satisfied with, that ensured the highest reduction in crime in 17 years, that ensured the revamp of the police service to the point that it moved from 14% public trust and confidence to 59%, and now it's departed to 8%. And you remove that person. Why? Because he was not towing the political line to arrest people as you may have recommended. That shows we are in a state of dictatorial aspects here where a prime minister or government, they are trying to utilize and handpick people. So this SSA situation is just that. The information I have is that there was a deliberate attempt to manipulate and maneuver persons to have them utilize equipment. There was an individual who was a constable in the police service, and this Minister of National Security was trying to get me to make this man the head of the cybercrime unit, and he kept harassing me and he tried to influence me, and I refused because he knew that this person will toe the line. You can't be a prime minister or minister of national security that only you're trying to handpick people not based on competence or performance, but based on who might be a yes person to adhere to your political directive to target political opponents. Then we'll be no different to Venezuela.
Gary, what is your take on the Minister of Housing trying to put, I think, police officers and defense force officers in HDC, how I could say, HDC areas or HDC buildings in order to stem the type of crime that's happening? I saw that.
Well, there's some merit to it. If it is that those individuals are armed, if it is that they have some degree of a capability that could assist in securing the area. So it is not something that's bad. In fact, when I was Minister of National Security, there was a policy, and it was 10% of all HDC houses are supposed to be issued to members of the protective services. That has never really kicked in. It is something that should have been there all of the time. 10% of all HDC houses to members of the protective services, be it defense force, police, customs, immigration, fire, prisons, it doesn't matter. And if that is done, now in some countries, what usually happens, like in the military, they will have a whole city or a small town with about 500 families all in one secure area, obviously because of threats that may take place, but you have all of the military persons live there, and you have the cafeteria, you have a small supermarket and so forth in that area. That is something that I was trying to set up as Minister of National Security. But if it is that they can utilize the 10%, it means that for every 10 houses in every HDC area, one should be for a member of the protective service. If that could be used as an avenue to assist in law enforcement and to minimize criminal activity, it can be of value.
Gary, I know you haven't been commissioner of police sometime. What is the status with body cameras in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, when we got body cameras, it was a standard operational procedure that if you come out of your vehicle, you must turn it on. And we will know and we will check in to verify whether you did it or not. So there were checks and balances because we measured performance, we made persons accountable. That stopped. We also trained the police officers to understand that these body cameras are there to help you. So if it is that somebody can falsely accuse you of abuse of authority, the body cameras will make sure that you can now show to yourself, this person attacked me, which goes right back to this situation with these two persons who died at the in police custody. We have police officers with medical reports of them being badly hurt and damaged in confrontation with these two individuals. So how dare you, Fitzgerald Hines, shame on you to automatically label the whole of SWOT and everyone as virtual killers and murderers. And that is why it was shut down, without one person even yet being arrested. So it shows the importance of the body cameras. With the body cameras being on, it can prevent police officers from being wrongfully accused. That is what I had when I was commissioner. We had real lifetime cameras on the dashboard of the police vehicles to see what was happening in real time. We had a National Operations Center monitoring the 17,000 cameras. That's down to about 8,000 now because of incompetence by the same Fitzgerald Hines. And all of these things would have played a part in lifting the standard of the police, making sure that they are properly protected, making sure that they would not be wrongfully accused. All of these things have been removed. Why? Because Gary Griffith implemented them.
You know, as you say that, Gary, I don't know if it's a friend of yours, but a PNM person, a familiar PNM person that you took to court and you won against her, she called for Fitzgerald Hines to go.
That is interesting. Yes, I did hear, but so let me tell you that would only have happened if it is that instructions have been given. So it looks like the decision has already been made, so they just massage it for when it happens. But again, I mean, this is not to knock the PNM, this is the RPNM. I'm going back again, because under the Patrick Manning administration, that government did so much to assist. When you look at the waterfront in Trinidad and Tobago, you look at Napa, you look at SAPA, you look at the special anti-crime unit, you look at the blimp that they were trying to bring in, the OPVs that the plan was. When you look at the things, what Manning did in those last couple of years is more than the Rowley government has done in national security in 9 years. He has done nothing, not one policy, not one plan, not one unit. All that he has done is anything that Gary Griffith has implemented, shut it down, dismantle it, and pull the plug, and not replace it with anything. How could anyone who's a PNM want to have somebody like that in this to run a government again? And I'm not talking about the PNM, I'm talking about Keith Rowley. The man is bitter, he's full of hate, animosity, and when he cannot have his way, he gets totally out of control. He's like a raging bull, quote unquote.
Do you consider yourself PNM enemy 1A? Well, 1A minus, because Mrs. Kamala Prasad says might be 1A and you 1A minus, or both of you?
But guys, I don't know. I don't know. During the local government election, they attacked me more than her. They spoke about me more than her. And now look at what's happening. You do a media conference, not to attack Kamala, but to attack me. Because you see, Kamala Prasad, she has her 150, 180, 200,000 votes. They're not going anywhere. They're not shifting. So whatever they say about Kamala Prasad, that UNC base is holding strong. And there's nothing against that. It's just like the PNM base. But that 150,000, that 100 to 150,000, those are floating voters who at times they will shift to the PNM if they're not pleased with what the UNC is doing. Most might go to the UNC. But when there's a third party and there's someone who they believe that they can trust, that is not going to let them down, that they believe that he is going to assist them in providing their fundamental rights of safety and security and everything else in the public service by using the same principles I did to improve your security in this country of good leadership, accountability, management, and measuring performance across the board. We are going to improve health, education, national security, sport, youth development, and we'll be able to do that with checks and balances. And that is how we intend to transform Trinidad and Tobago. So with hearing my words are not about attacking the PNM, and we continue to show policies, plans, programs, technology, try to tell the country, if we could have transformed the police service, which was seen as the least trusted, into the most trusted, we can transform Trinidad and Tobago. Those type of words, the RPNM can't do it. We can.
So I'm just seeing a quick something here in the chat, right? On property tax, Mr. Griffith. What is your position or the NTA's position on property tax?
And that the position will be based on the fact that what this government can do to balance a budget is always based on trying to tax themselves to lift income to balance with their expenditure. And this would the property tax could very well be justified if we could know that based on their competence, they will have the ability based on using these funds to provide better roads, to provide better healthcare, to provide a better security system. But they don't. So whether you put property tax of 2% or 20%, they are incompetent. They don't have the managerial skill to transform the different ministries into something that the country can say, I am satisfied that I am getting I'm getting the dollars that I am putting out, I'm getting proper delivery, proper service. That is what it makes no sense to lift your property tax and increase income to balance your expenditure when the deliverables are not going to become. So what they want to fool you with is, okay, let's pay property tax so that we can fix the water, fix the roads. Not true, not so at all. We can go back to the Basil Pandey administration when the budget was 14-15 billion TT, and the US and to the oil barrel was less than about 15 US to the barrel, and sometimes at $8 or $9, and it was one of the most efficient governments the country had ever seen. But the homicide rate was over 600% less than what it is now. So it showed that it can be done based on good leadership and good management, not injecting more funds, because Colin Imbert is as clueless as they come. So his only way to balance a budget is to find extra taxes, and then he will boast that they haven't rewritten yet. So the concept that what we take is not the fact of trying to find extra funds to lift your income. We need to find a way to reduce expenditure whilst not affecting productivity. And that can be done by simple examples of a Brian Lara cricket stadium that's supposed to cost $7 million US, and we paid $200 million US for it. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service alone, I was able to reduce that budget of over 300 million TT per annum in overtime corruption, in fuel corruption in vehicles, in extra duty corruption, in police vehicles going to a garage to fix a muffler. Next thing it was a whole engine overhaul because you might be closely affiliated to the garage owner. That is how you lift a country. That is how you develop a country. Reduce the corruption, reduce the incompetence, reduce the mismanagement. You can now bring down your expenditure whilst not affecting productivity, and hence no need to have property tax to lift it to balance with your expenditure.
You know, something dear to you and something dear to me is sports in Trinidad and Tobago. I look at the Griffith games and I see the 4x1 men under 20. I think it's under 20, either under 17 or
under 20. Yeah, under 20.
For the first time in a long, long time in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. You know, I will think that if the Minister of Sports is Akuran update, she would have sent the Prime Minister a message, and the Prime Minister would have sent a message to these guys in Grenada and call them and tell them this was an outstanding performance. You know, we have been looking at you. It's a long time since Trinidad and Tobago have won a gold medal. I mean, what says you?
Well, definitely not. Had I been the manager of that national team and the Prime Minister sent that message, I'd have tried to pull all the hair out of my head to be bald head just like him. Because I have been manager of the national hockey team for about 12 years. I was an acting chef de mission once. I've been involved in training managers. I've been on the technical staff of our National Football World Cup team when they are in external qualifiers. I have been on the West Indies technical staff in the World Cup. So I have seen the concept of how it is that you can change a side to a team. This government, what they do is nothing. They provide no support for the teams. And then if the team wins based on raw talent, then they jump on a bandwagon, have a minister turn up at the airport, have a motorcade. That is not what the players want. That is not what the sporting organizations want. They want the preparation, the support prior to them leaving. And that is never done. The national hockey team qualified for the World Cup final. The World Cup final defeating USA 5-4. And they couldn't even get a proper venue to train. And that is why our national football team for the 2022 World Cup qualifiers, they didn't provide them with a ground, they didn't provide them with meals, they didn't provide them with practice games, they didn't provide them with to go external games. And then when they don't qualify, you bad talk the coach, you bad talk the players. that this government knows nothing about the importance of sport. They know nothing about sport tourism. Whereas Guyana could inject 100 million US that they get from the 3 years of CPL. We don't have it. And our grounds are better. It is better for the economy in Trinidad and Tobago. Nothing is done. Jamaica, their first 2 months for the year, they have one Ministry of Tourism injected almost half of Trinidad and Tobago's annual budget. So Jamaica's annual income they're going to get for tourism will be 2 to 3 times more than Trinidad and Tobago's whole budget. And we put nothing into tourism, nothing into sport tourism. And that is my point, where this government, all they do is look at expenditure, and they don't find systems such as the Ministry of Health. Find something that can make it income generated, rather than just spending almost $1 billion annually and you're not getting anything in return through health tourism. And that is where we speak about, we speak about diversification and we really think about agriculture. But all of these ministries, it can be done. And if it is done, there's no need for property tax.
It's interesting, right? And the person on the 4x1 anchor is the grandson of Wendell Motley. And he is at IMG Academy in Florida, right? So he's abroad. He's abroad, and he came back home to run for character. And I'm saying that Trinidad and Tobago, if we just had some type of academy, whether it's a football academy, whether it's they have the Brian Lara, and then have an academy in Brian Lara Stadium. I'm not sure. I'm asking.
Well, that's a cricket academy. That's a cricket academy. So our athletes, they use the national stadium, which up until only about less than a year ago was totally dilapidated. The gym and everything was a disaster. Flood water was coming down from into all of the dressing rooms. So they recently refurbished it, and it shows the failure of the government to understand that these type of athletes need that proper type of training, that specific type of preparation, practice matches, international exposure. It is, and the only thing that could be done to save us is to try to get foreign players who are not in Trinidad and Tobago, be it our national football team, be it our athletes, because they get that exposure there. Those universities where they're involved in our young athletes, they get 10 times better preparation and development for this type of international events than our locals in Trinidad and Tobago, because of poor preparation, poor planning, and no support from the state.
Somebody has told me we had the 5 Ps: proper planning prevents poor performance. And it seems like, But here's a question from the chat. Roger Gill says, property tax will go directly to each regional corporation, borough council, and city council. Each of these entities will be responsible for the development of community under their purview. Property tax by law will not go to the consolidated fund of the central government.
And let me clarify, the regional corporations, when it run regional corporation, you're going to tell me you're going to put billions of dollars to build box drains? Really? That's what the property tax is about? We're in a situation here where the vast majority of the country did not have a 24-hour water supply. How could regional corporations be the avenue to repair that? We have a situation where illegal guns are entering the country on a regular basis. We have hundreds of people being killed by illegal weapons. How by filtering those funds into those areas is going to reduce crime? We have a situation where our education is becoming so pathetic that 7% of our youths suffer. They have something called ADHD, and it's not a proper system to train them for them to become the best that they could be. How could that be done by filtering the funds in that direction? So it confirms my point. Better water supply, better electricity supply, better roads, better drainage, better security, better education, better health. You're not going to get it by lifting property tax. What you're going to get is have an avenue to have gang members known as community leaders, give them a $5 million contract to build a $50,000 box drain. That's the RPNM way.
Here's another quick question. Mr. Gary, will you be in a position to state that Johnny Abraham will make a good leader in the Commissioner of Police office, maybe?
No, I mean, that question, remember, to be a Commissioner of Police, which is why Fitzgerald Hines was so clueless trying to question my ability. There are about 9 different elements for you to be eligible to qualify to top the merit list. And like, for example, with myself, When I applied the first time, I got 82.5%. Ulla Christopher got 52%. 52%. So as I would have acquired 47 out of 50 in the interview, she got 25 out of 50. I would get 12 out of 15 in the mock media conference. She got 3 out of 15. I got 12 out of 15 in the media fit or role play. She got 3 out of 15. And that is who this incompetent Police Service Commission put as commissioner. Because in 2021, when I reapplied, I got 94% and she got 74%. So it's not as simple as just saying this person is a good fit, because you have to go through so many different things. You have to do psychometric tests, you have to do polygraph testing, role fit, mock media conference, interviews, operational reports. So you can't answer on any one person their capability unless it is that they are measured by qualified experts. When I acquired 30 and 20% more than early Christopher, they were qualified experts. That's when KPMG and you had international persons who were qualified to measure the performance of a commissioner. This wrongs, thanks to this government, they appointed a new Police Service Commission who was appointed by a president who failed to adhere to the law by submitting the last merit list. And that Police Service Commission comprised somebody who was a speaking consultant and an accountant. No knowledge, training, experience, or qualification whatsoever in law enforcement. And these jokers in that Police Service Commission put Ulla Christopher first. So the point of whether somebody has the capability, it is based on if it is you have a competent Police Service Commission. And again, as I said, you have to go through a massive degree of different systems to ascertain whether it is you're even shortlisted for the position.
Mr. Griffith, here is a great question, right? This comes from Highly. Question: sport betting is big all over the world. Would you create a sports betting on local sports, because they will generate a lot of revenue from all over the world, bringing a lot of foreign exchange?
No, I would not. I have, again, been a security head for international cricket for the ICC for years in Trinidad and Tobago. We have seen the dangers that take place pertaining to gambling with sports. Even right in our pro league, we actually were seeing situations with persons making bets to actually lose for their own team so that they will benefit. So I have never been someone who has been too happy about that concept, especially in a country like this. I mean, when it is that you're abroad and you want to make bets on English Premier League teams or whatever. And again, I'll show you how simple it is. So when it is that you have CPL or an international cricket game, if you see a bowler with his handkerchief in his left pocket, and then he moves it to his right pocket, we can pinpoint a red flag. And then he'll bowl 3 consecutive no balls, and that goes at about 100-1. And those are the type of things where somebody is going somebody changes helmet. It means that in the next 2 balls, he's going to get stumped out. So those things, it's not good in sport. A country of this size, I will not see the value of it, because I see the dangers by our own sportsmen deliberately corrupting themselves and their team. And that certainly can't be good for sport.
Even though you... Go ahead, Tommy.
I'm going back to national security. Now, national security is probably one of the most pressing issues that faces the country at this time. Would you, as one involved with national security in a new government, be interested in seeking inputs from Trinidadians who are abroad that have been developed in the security arena?
Well, definitely not handpicking Trinidadians abroad, getting anyone who is willing to support and assist Trinidad and Tobago. That includes our international allies. So I don't know if you're aware, I actually signed a MOU and that bilateral agreement with the NYPD, where I assigned Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the NYPD were united. Never happened before. And with that, they assisted me in forming the gender-based violence unit, the social media monitoring unit. Giuliani and partners came and trained our police officers in customer service training and public relations, which is what lifted public trust and confidence. All of that shut down after I left, so that's why we've gone back to 8%. So I'm not looking so much as individuals, but units and organizations throughout the world who are our international allies that are willing to come and support, complement, and enhance the operational capability of each and every arm in the police service and that of national security. If they are citizens of Trinidad and Tobago who have that capability, definitely we will welcome them. One of the things I intend to do, getting back in government, is to get back that brain drain that we have lost by so many citizens leaving Trinidad and Tobago for the last 10 years because of them being fed up, because of they're being mortified, they are afraid that their daughter could be raped, their mother or their wife could be killed, their son could be kidnapped, and we lost so much good quality citizens out there. I am time to tell them, time to come back home, and let's build back Trinidad and Tobago.
Because the reason why I asked this question is because we have some members some Trinidadians who from time to time are in the chat and so on, that are qualified. For example, Captain Singh. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, but Captain Singh is a military person of Trinidadian descent who's in the United States that has a lot of experience. And from time to time, he's in the chat with us. And we have also Sergeant Ramsey, who has experience in security, that from time to time would call the show and give some of his ideas. And I'm thinking that when you get back in there, because it seems as though you're going to be back, that you can tap on some of these resources of Trinidadians that are abroad and can contribute immensely to the security apparatus.
Oh no, you hit it nail on the head. Explain it from that perspective, definitely, because even when I was Minister of National Security Advisor, and Commissioner of Police, I visited the NYPD about 4 occasions, and every time there was a different commissioner. Even I met and brought into Trinidad Bill Bratton, Bernard Kerrick. I think I met Kelly and a couple others. And when I visited NYPD, what I will always get is being linked to Trinidad and Tobago citizens who live in the United States who are police officers there. And because of that, there was a greater need for them to want to, there's a greater passion, a greater need for them to give out more than just, look, this is a commissioner or minister who's visiting, let me just show him the ropes. These guys actually had a desire to want to fix Trinidad and Tobago because it's their country as well. Even though they may have migrated, but their families there, their friends are there, they want to fix Trinidad and Tobago. So obviously in a situation like that, individuals such as who you contacted and who spoke to you, and not just national security, we are speaking, as I said, sport, health, education, the economy, youth development, finance, all of these things, tourism. If there are persons out there who have that capability and that exposure, the experience, the qualification that they have, it is time, if I am asking humbly, time to come, if not come back home, at least be willing to be part of that new transformation to lift Trinidad and Tobago to the standard that we should be. So most definitely, we would welcome that. It doesn't happen here. Here, as I said, I always say that there's total disrespect for the diaspora. In that the perception by this government is that you all out of place, you all not supposed to vote to select who must be in the government. And because you have to be inside for 6 months, fly a plane and land. Banana Republic thinking. As I said, not 2025 election, but definitely for 2030 general election, we will ensure that all citizens who have a Trinidad and Tobago passport and an address from Trinidad and Tobago, you will be eligible to vote right where you are.
You know, I was just going to ask you that question, and I was going to ask you to talk about the Diaspora initiative, because we live in the diaspora here, and you know, I mean, I got to be honest with you. You're one of the few politicians that come on our program and talk about the Diaspora initiative. You know, we can't get the you know, it's funny, guy. You know, we have a hard time getting PNM people to come on our program.
Well, I think it's so unfortunate. I mean,
wait a minute. Let me say this. We understand though that when people in opposition, right, they will make and come on programs, but when they get in power, it'll be a different story, right? We understand that.
Well, not everyone. When I was Commissioner of Police, I was the only madman that gave every single citizen my phone number to be in case of any emergency. When I was Minister of National Security, I'll be in office from 5 in the morning, meeting dozens of persons. You can't expect you want to get in government, you want to serve, and then when you get there, you forget about who put you there. There's just one word that I will say about when it is that you intend to serve in public life: accessibility. Make yourself accessible. Don't feel that you have reached that point, you don't have time to speak to anyone. And we even have that with our system. I'm not too sure the US system, but when we have members of parliament, you have 41, and 41 persons are going to become members of parliament. 41 are going to win. And out of that, probably if it is that you win, say 22-19, at least 15 or 16 of them become ministers, because the prime minister wants to make them ministers because of the fear factor that I need to keep them happy, so they must have their executive black SUV with their drivers opening the door and this massive ministry with all the staff and people and soldiers and police saluting you. That is what it's all about. But when that happens, guess who suffers? The constituents in that constituency who don't see the member of parliament because they're busy enjoying life in the ministry. Because being a minister is more important, it has more perks. So you spend more time in your ministry than being in the constituency. I always say that a member of parliament is supposed to be the highest qualified councillor, similar to local government where you have the corporations and you have councillors. Your job, the reason the people who put you there are the people you're supposed to serve more. And that is why I would love, I can't say that I could only do it if I become prime minister or political leader in charge of all the parties. But this concept of persons becoming member of parliament, waiting to now become a minister and then forget about your constituency. You turn up there every Wednesday for about 2 hours. No, they voted for you as a member of parliament to be there 168 hours odd for the week. Serve us, be there for us. And that is why the constituencies suffer. That is why when I walked the length and breadth of Trinidad during the local government election, I walked in the hills in Paramin, in Simeon Road in Diego Martin, in the hills in Scorpion in Caranage, in all the hills in Laventil, in Beetham, in Sealots, all through Tunapuna, St. Joseph, all the hills in Arima, all through San Fernando, Sangre Grande, and especially in the east-west corridor. They said they have never seen the political leader of the PNM in those places where I walked. Many of them said they've never seen their member of parliament in those cracks and roads and areas and valleys and alleys that I walked. They've never seen it. So when I walk through all the hills and Cocorite, they've never seen a politician walk up there. Why? Because it's PNM country. It's that area where we do not need to represent or be there because we know they're going to vote for us blindly. And I think that is so unfortunate. So I need to find a way that when we win, it is not just that these 15, 16 seats that the PNM may keep, we are going to totally ignore them. I have to find a way to ensure that each and every citizen in this country get what they deserve, which is good governance from a good government.
You know, and in my estimation, that's all the people are asking. The people are asking that, you know, when you got in power, you make sure and, you know, at least look out for the people. You know, for example, I am from Chumacac, Laventil, and I left Trinidad about 47 years ago. 47 years ago. And when I go back to Chumacac, it is 25 times worse than Newark here in New Jersey. And Newark have improved 25 times what happened in Chumacac. And I'm asking myself, this is a community that have never forsaken the PNM. For all the years the PNM have in power, they have voted for them. And why it is that PNM people don't say to the PNM, you know, you all can't treat those people like that. When time comes for a general election, they put their votes in the PNM bank. And when time comes for them to cash in on the votes, the PNM say, no, you have to wait 3 months before the next local election or the next general election before we come and pave some roads or go mash up in a month or come and do some type of things in your community. I don't understand. Well, I don't even share that. So.
Well, see, it is taken for granted, and it stops at the top. With Keith Rowley being the member of parliament for Diego Martin West, I went into that area in Caranage, in School Street, up in, as I said, Scorpion and stuff, as a commissioner and as a politician. And on 3 occasions, I went up in Scorpion, and they said they've never seen Keith Rowley there. And this man has been in that constituency for 3 decades as a member of parliament. So it shows you are prime minister and you don't even bother to walk. Colin Imbert said it with total arrogance in 2015. He said, I won this seat and I didn't even bother to walk because I know that's a PNM area. You don't even have the common courtesy to walk to fool the people into believing that when you win, you're going to come back again. He said, I didn't bother to walk. And that is the type of arrogance they have, because they know they're going to blindly vote for us. So we don't even need to make an effort. Let us put all the effort and the funds and the voter party in the marginal seats so we can get back in government. That Trinidad and Tobago is changing. I intend to make sure that every single citizen, every single one of the 41 constituencies will be treated equally. You can't be a government and then when the government changes, it's we time now. And they start putting focus and emphasis on the constituencies that belong to you. We have to make sure that each and every, so even for those people, you pay them till they die, who might still win these seats for Laventille and other areas, I still have to find a way to ensure that I can get you out of that system where it is you feel like you have to blindly vote for people that are going to totally ignore you, whether in or out of government.
So here is this is the last one. Here is Captain Singh. This is the person we're talking about. He says, Gary, can we get a new maximum security prison in a cell tower signal free and establish a prisoner work gang system in order to have restorative justice?
Right. So in that system that we have in Trinidad and Tobago, our rehabilitation is one of the worst in the Caribbean because of because of a high recidivism rate. So we have a young person who will actually go into prison and rub shoulders with hardened criminals and come out a more hardened criminal. What he just spoke about, I did as the commissioner of police. So I tell you, I was doing the job as what the minister should be doing. We found out that a lot of hits were taking place from the prison. So what we did is, because I remember there was one individual, he got 4 cell phones in 24 hours. 4 cell phones in 24 hours. As soon as we picked up, he had a cell phone in his cell, we seized it, and within a couple hours, a prison officer will give him another one. That is how difficult it was. So what I did is we formed a wing in Golden Grove, and that wing, it was a corridor that no one else could go in or out unless it's one door. What I did, I put 2 police officers, then 2 soldiers, then 2 prison officers. So every single thing that goes through, unless all 6 of them are corrupt at the same time, those individuals inside there who were instrumental in calling hits or whatever could not get a call out. That is how you fix the problem. And it worked. And guess what? Gary Griffith left, open it again, and bam, hits calling from the prison yet again. How could anyone want to have a government like this? I put those systems in place to put an end to it or to greatly minimize it. As soon as I left, and guess who was the frontline unit that will go into the prison in case they had problems? The Special Operation Response Team. So the point being is that if it is you really want me to fix the country, it can't work with the RPNM. They need to leave. And as I said, to all those PNM supporters, you got nothing to lose. It cannot get worse than what you're going through right now. To the floating voters, I am providing you with the assurance that we will not make the mistakes of the past. I will be there to represent you and to make sure that we would be represented properly, fairly, and in an impartial manner. And to those other persons who will be part of that unification, trust me that we are going to fix Trinidad and Tobago. We'll make Trinidad and Tobago safe again. We'll provide the needs of citizens by not having to tax our way to try to balance a budget, but by minimizing the wastage, the corruption, the mismanagement, and the incompetence that we have seen by this government in the last 9 years.
Gary, just to go back to what you were talking about, having 6 persons in that position of security to prevent the cell phones, that becomes pretty expensive to make sure that that doesn't happen. Can we find ways other than expending that kind of expenses?
Well, really and truly, it wasn't expensive. Just having 2 police officers, two police officers a table, 10 feet behind, two soldiers a table, 10 feet behind, 2 prison officers a table. That's not expensive. It was a wing that was used for those persons who we had perception that they were heavily involved in having access to the prison officers. So it wasn't expensive. So it can be done. It worked. It played a critical part to reduce crime during my last year when the murder rate was 342. After I left, when all of these things collapsed, the murder rate went up to over 600 in just over a year. And there are other things that can be done. But this is where Keith Rowley and Fitzgerald Hines, they have no national security training or experience to think out of the box, apart from even not having the understanding of law enforcement. So if you have somebody who's a hardened criminal who has links or connections in Grenada, for example, and there's another one who has the same thing in Barbados and one in Trinidad, The Trinidad prisoners go to Grenada, the Grenada prisoners go to Barbados, the Barbados prisoners come to Trinidad. You have now isolated them from having that link with prison officers that can allow them to have access to cell phones and so forth. So there are things that can be done, but that is taken out of the box.
What I was implying is that there's technology that can be used to alleviate.
Yes, there's technology that, but constantly again, the jammers and grabbers trying to put the systems to lock off the phones from being connected. These things, however, you need the political will to get it done. This Minister of National Security is totally incompetent. He's supposed to make sure, if I was Minister of National Security, that is something immediately we're going to get it, lock it in, and make sure it is used along that line. But again, it requires political will. Fitzgerald Hines certainly does not have that. All his comments, whether it is for law-abiding citizens to get firearms, whether it is him not even having a word of prayer or concern about the number of people who have been killed at the hands of criminals, they never have a word to say about those people. It's always, what about the rights of criminals? When I got the recommendation and I said, any criminal who has an assault weapon, which is an automatic weapon that can kill 35 persons in 3 seconds, that person should be deemed a terrorist, which will immediately take away the fact that he's entitled to bail. It makes it a capital offense. He's now sentenced to life imprisonment, and the people who assisted him in importing it, who secured it for him, who transported it for him, they are now involved in aiding and abetting in a terrorist act, so they all will be incarcerated for life. You know what Keith Rowley says? Gary Griffith plan is to say that all criminals are terrorists. The man is so, and again in local parlance, dotish. We never said that. We were trying to pinpoint and target the criminal elements who have assault weapons that can kill 35 persons in 3 seconds. And Keith Rowley had a problem. He had a concern by us finding an avenue to make sure these people could be incarcerated for life. So what's happening now? You're caught with an assault weapon. You go out there, $50,000 bail. You come back out. You hire, you get another weapon. You put a hit on those people who tipped them off. And now you have another weapon. And now you're going to use the money now to pay your bail money. That is the Keith Rowley style of national security.
Gary, last one before you go. Do you believe that it's personal between you and the Prime Minister?
Well, yeah, definitely. When it is a commissioner of police will have 89% national support, and you as a Prime Minister, 40%. When everything, the public is speaking highly about one person over the other. And then what makes it worse is that when he does not have total control, we could go back to the COVID situation, when again, because of his ignorance and not understanding the law, he said that I had a right to arrest people in their homes when it is that they were socializing. You couldn't do it. And I refused to adhere and obey an illegal command. And that is what is required. You need that type of leadership in this country. You can't have a commissioner of police or chief of defense staff or director of the SSA blindly just listening to what a prime minister says because he put you there. That is why the nice thing with myself, I don't need a work. So I could afford to stand firm to a prime minister and say, hey, you're wrong, and I am not doing it. And there's a difference with things that are illegal and unethical. But in these cases, it was illegal. And I'm not going to abuse my authority. And because of those things, it caused the public to have respect for a politician, respect for a commissioner of police. He lost a lot of respect because of how he operated. And I think because of that, he lost his way. But who suffered? By you now trying to demonize me and bad talk me and using your little mini-me and Rip Van Winkle to bad talk me, all it is doing is getting the country to realize you are mortified of Gary Griffith. You are intimidated by him. You fear him. You feel insecure about him. And instead of trying for him to help you because you're clueless, what you're trying to do is demonize him. And the more they do what they did today, the more votes they have lost. So thanks a lot, Keith, for that decision you made. You just made it easier for me to win St. Joseph.
Gary, any closing words before you go? Hear me? Any closing words? Any closing words before you go?
I just asked the country to Trinidad and Tobago to please believe to all others in the diaspora. Please understand that I will always be a patriot before a politician, and I will make the right decision. I will not make the politically correct decision, which is why I'll probably always get in trouble. But my intention is always to do what is right for the country. I have a threshold, a chain of command when I swear out to my God and then the country and the people of this country. The prime minister or politicians, you go way down that pecking order, especially if you try to do something that is illegal or unethical. I will stand firm for what I believe in.
Harry, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so very kindly.
Thank you so very much.
All the best.